You have to share your screen.
Yeah.
So once you share your screen, you add it to that presentation mode so you can cut out your text box.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you to today's session. Let me know if you all can hear me.
Hello, everyone. Is there anyone in the room?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Ablai.
Hi, good
Your,
afternoon, Mr. Time.
your video is not on. I guess you want to put my
Okay,
video. Um, yep.
okay, it's on now.
Okay. Welcome. So, is there anybody in
Yeah,
the
thank you.
house? This indicates by stating in the chat box your name and where you are joining us from. So, we're going to start any moment from now. As you can see on your screen, this is sponsored or they are sponsored by Starry Academy and is titled ICAN Exam Success Webinar. So if you are just joining us, please just indicate your name and where you are joining us from. So if you are Adamu from Kanu, you can say yes, I'm Adamu from Kanu. And if you have Ekpeyon from Calabar, you say yeah, I'm Ekpeyon from Calabar. And if you are God's will from Bayelsa, or you are Adetayo from Lagos. All right, Ajayi Michael, welcome. Where are you joining us from? So please indicate your name and your location in the chat box. The chat box, if you are using a desktop, is by your right. And if you are using a mobile, I guess you'll see it down the screen. So we're very, very excited for having you today. Yeah, Uyo. Hi, it's Uyo Ajayi Michael. I hope you are safe. All right. So, okay, Oyo, not Uyo, Oyo. So, how is Oyo State this afternoon or today rather? So, as you can see on the screen, we are doing what we call ICAN Exam Success Webinar. So, and today we'll be looking at business law exam techniques. So, what are the techniques that you need to bring into the exam or once you start the exam? All right, so what are the technique? Please, just a moment. Hello, Gabriel. Yeah. Yes, I can hear you. Good afternoon. Okay, dark screen from your own end. We've already launched it, and me and the lecturer can see each other. Maybe, but there's somebody Ajayi that have joined from Uyo or Yorada. Okay, make sure you are using the right link. Okay, no problem.
Okay. Since the network is
Yes,
fluctuating,
if you are
yeah.
just joining us, oh, okay, maybe your network is fluctuating, right?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay, all right, that's good. So, yes, I think we should just start right away while others will join us. Ajayi, you're welcome. I guess you are doing business law. All right, so I'll turn the screen over to Abdullah. Oh, okay, Sean from Lagos. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so like I said earlier on, this is sponsored by Starry Academy. The reason why we are doing this is that we want as many students to pass this exam. One, the cost of this exam is not cheap. So as we all know, things cost of living is increasing. And we know that if you pass this exam, it will add to your feather of success. So Abdullah will be taking us through. So it's going to, I'll be coming in as necessary. So and then we're expected to run for 30 minutes, for 5 minutes, and maximum or maximum of 1 hour. It should be done. So, okay, over to you, Abdullah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Tayo, for that welcome introduction, and also I would like to thank all the admin and all officials of the institute for setting up this webinar. So, good afternoon, students. Good afternoon, professionals from various locations, whether you're from Lagos. I welcome you to today's ICAN exam success webinar organized by Starry Academy. With a special focus on business law. Okay, so today's webinar will be addressing some key techniques, on how you can, pass the examination, the ICAN examination, most importantly, business law exam, because it requires a unique technique on how you approach questions. So if you are joining us from Lagos, from Oyo, or from whatever locations, please indicate your name and your locations in the chat box. We'd like to meet you. We'd like to know where you're joining us from. And please share this link to all your friends, all your families that you know are putting in for the exam. So this webinar would also be helpful for them as well. So let's continue straight into the webinar. So like I said, mentioned earlier, my name is Abdullah, and I'll be your facilitator, for this webinar. So now, our key objective, which we want to achieve in today's webinar, is to ensure that our students understand and appreciate how to effectively manage their time, which is effective time management, which is one of our objectives. Also, our second objective is to ensure that students are able to review, understand, and analyze question requirements carefully, because a lot of people don't know how to review questions requirements. They just answer questions. So what we want to achieve today is how you can view, understand, and analyze questions requirements carefully. And the third objective, which we'll be looking at today, is how you can structure your answer to earn more marks. So these three combined objective is what makes a student pass, the ICAN examination. Remember that our focus is on business law for the foundation level students. So these are the three objectives which we want to achieve today in today's webinar. So as I mentioned earlier, that one of our objectives is to ensure that students are able to review, understand, and analyze question requirements carefully. So we'll begin in understanding how questions are being asked in the examination. It's quite different, from every other topics, just like quantitative techniques or taxation. So the way you answer law questions, there are some key terms that examiners don't joke with. So a number of them, we can find them on the screen, right? So we can see that we have analyze, apply, assess, calculate, comment, compare, conclusion, criticize, define, describe, discuss, evaluate, illustrate, state, summarize, reasons, differentiate, expatiate, causes, and a lot more. So we're going to be taking each of these terminologies, explaining them as in line with the examination requirements, and now you can use them, to achieve more marks in the examination, which leads to success at the end of the day. Okay, so in understanding the question, when you are being given a question in the examination, it's very important that you consider the question requirements carefully to understand what is being asked. A lot of students, when they get to the examination or they get their question, so they don't decide on time, which question will I answer, or how will I answer this question? Oh, the examiner is asking, explain business law. Oh, do you think that explaining business law means that you should just define a 2-line paragraph? No. So how do you understand the requirements? Because once you get the requirements right, then you are actually writing what the examiner needs, and by that you earn a full mark. So I'll be listing out some points on how you can understand your questions effectively in the examination. So if you're just joining us, please your name and your location in the chat box so we know where you're joining us from. So the first point which we'll be looking at in order for you to effectively understand question in the exam is analyze. So you're in the examination hall and you see the terminology called analyze as part of the exam requirement. So what does analyze mean? Analyze means breaking down the question into separate parts and ensuring that you discuss and interpret each part, and lastly, relate the examination question to the scenario provided. Exactly. So if you are given a situation to analyze, so they want you to, from the word analyze, means breaking things down. So you break it down into bits and ensure you discuss each of those bits and relating it to the question. Because some people can analyze, but they don't relate it to what the question is saying. So you don't analyze generally, you analyze based on the information provided in the question. So to make this easy for us, we've also shown an exam type question on how you can apply analyze the examination type question. So let me read as follows. GBT and Wire agreed that Wire altered some accounting records in order to conceal some money that GBT stole from their employer. So GBT would pay Wire a sum of 500,000 naira. Wire altered the records, but GBT has refused to pay him. Required, that is the requirement in the exam. Analyze the scenario above, taking into consideration the aspect of the law breached. So you can see that for you to analyze this kind of question, okay, you need to understand what is the question talking about. It's talking about what? Two individuals trying to alter an accounting records to steal money from their employer, amounting to the sum of 500,000 naira. So now, one person has carried out that act, and the other is refusing to pay the other party. Now, analyze this requirement, taking into consideration the aspect of the law breach. So if you want to analyze this requirement, you you have to break it down to say, okay, what is a contract in its real self? Is this a contract? Because a contract is what? Is a legal agreement between two or more parties. What GBT and YL are doing, is it actually legal? So you take your point from there, you break it down into bits. So you just say, oh, the question above states that there was a contract between both parties, and one party breached the contract, and they're going to sue the other person for damages. No, you will earn your full marks. You need to go back to the relationship between the two parties. What does it mean? A contract. You define a contract. Ask yourself this question: is it actually a contract? It's not a contract because what? Both parties are engaging in something illegal. Altering accounting records of a company is actually an illegal act, even though you have been paid for it. So that is how you answer the question. You won't just jump and say yes or no. You have to what? You have to take it step by step. So I hope we understand the analyze part of the question.
Yeah, thank you, Adlai. I just want to chip in something. Thank you. I want
Okay.
to welcome Temitokpe and Taiwo, who is joining us from Lagos. How is Lagos this afternoon or this morning or wherever you are? So I hope everything is well with you. So if you're just joining us, please put your name and where you are joining us from on the chat box. Okay, over to you, Abdullah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Time, for that. Okay. So the next terminology which we'll be looking at on how you understand question in the exam is the terminology called apply. So now you're in the examination hall and you've seen the question requirement that says apply. Apply. What does apply means in its real sense? Remember that all these terminologies we collated in this webinar are all the terminologies used from the inception of the business law examination. So the examiner can't go beyond all these terminologies. They will still, they will still stay within the limits. It's either they apply, they analyze. So once you get all these terminologies right, it will make life easy for you in the examination. So what does apply means? Apply means it entails putting into action the law requirement in a given case scenario. You are going to relate the authorities you have used with the fact of the case. So in law, you are applying something. What does apply means? Means that what? You are applying the requirement of the law on a particular scenario, a case study scenario. So you need to state that law that you're actually applying. Okay. So that is why in law, it's very important to understand the laws and that guides, certain scenarios. For example, contracts, the law of contract guides contracts. In the banking, the law, the Banking Act and the Bank and Other Financial Institution Act, they guides the activities of bank. So you need to understand all these laws and be able to apply it in a case study scenario. And remember that there are a lot of case study scenarios in the examination. So to make this easy for us, we extract an exam type question stating the meaning applying. So now let me read the question for us. Esin and Adiza, who are neighbors, agree to take turns to take their children to the same school weekly. Esin breached the agreements last week, and Adiza has requested for her advice. Apply the law of contract in this given scenario. You can see the exam requirement says apply the law of contract. What does the law of contract says in this scenario? You need to know the law first. What is the law of contract? The law of contract actually guides the agreement between two or more parties. And for the law to be binding on you, you have to engage in something legal. Both parties have to understand what they are doing. They've signed and agreed on it. So looking at this scenario, Esin and Adiza, they are neighbors, right? They agreed to take turns to take their children to school weekly. So if Esin takes the children to the school this week, Adiza will do that next week. So now, Esin has actually breached our agreement last week, and Adiza requested for your advice. So if you are applying the law of contract in this scenario, you need to go back to what are the requirements, that guides a contract in law. There has to be an agreement. Both parties have to understand, it shouldn't be something that is out of force. So now looking at this scenario, both parties have actually agreed. They agreed. Was it actually documented? Was it agreed by both parties? Yes, they agreed on it. So if one person is actually breaching the agreement, then the law of contracts, you know, it doesn't really apply because there's no consideration attached. One party is not suffering and the other party is losing. So I hope you get all those requirements. So you need to understand the law. I need to apply that law to that particular scenario. So this is what we're trying to explain in this context. So our next terminology, which is very helpful in understanding question in the exam, is assess.
Thank you.
Assess.
Thank you, Abla. Before you go on,
Okay.
some people have also joined us again. We want to
Okay.
recognize your presence. If you are just joining us, um, please indicate your name in the text box and where you are joining us from so that we can acknowledge your presence. For your information, this is an exam technique webinar. We know the exam is still far away depending on when you'll be watching this one. So, but you see, we many students fail the exam because of poor exam technique, not because they don't know what they are doing. We've had people say the people that I taught, that I was one teaching them, putting them through before the exam, they passed and I failed. So what happened? So most likely it's exam technique. So you're welcome. So please indicate in the chat box where you are joining us from and your name. All right, over to you, Ablai. So
Yeah, thank you.
we need to hasten up because our time is running out. So we
Okay.
have, I think, 20 minutes more to go, and we still have a lot of um, definitions, requirements, and terms. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us from Lagos. All right, so we'll be waiting for others. So please continue, Ablai.
All right, thank you very much for that. So the next terminology which we'll be looking at is assess. So if you're assessing something in the exam, what does assess literally means? It means you need to determine the strength, weaknesses, the importance or significance uh, to the given question. So if you are assessing something, they are asking you to assess, the importance or the significance, or it might be the strength of that thing or an impact of something. So in the exam type question. So you are given a question to say, under the law of contract, a mistake is a factor that may invalidate a contract. You are required to assess the impact of mistake under the law of contract. So they are actually telling you that what is the impact that mistake will have in law of contract. So in this kind of scenario, you don't need to explain. You just highlight them with a bullet point to say, oh, mistake actually affects the law because a party can suffer damages. So that's how you get them. So, well, in law, there are no calculations. So I'll just skip that. So I'll move to the next one. So if you're asked to comment, in the exam, it actually means to explain or illustrate or criticize something. So if you're asked to comment, probably you are given a case study and you're asked to comment on whether both parties should engage in that contract. So you need to know that is this thing right or not before you can say yes, please go ahead. So our next terminology is compare. So compare, from what we know of compare, it means what? Explaining the similarities and differences. Okay, when you mean compare, you are comparing two terms together. In an exam, you might be given a question to say criminal law and civil law are distinguishable. You are required state the distinction as it relates to the parties to civil and criminal proceedings and the aim of each type of proceedings. So now you can see that criminal and civil, criminal offense, the person is going to be sued, is going to be, he might go to prison, for such an offense. But civil might pay a fine. So out of maybe negligence. So you need to compare and contrast the differences between both terminologies. Okay, so if you are given exam type question that says conclude, so conclusion actually means you are ending your answer well in a case study scenario. So when you mean we are given a conclusion, so at that conclusion, you just summarize your facts, what you've identified in the case, the resolution you gave, then just conclude with a statement saying based on these facts, the both parties should not go ahead with this contract. Okay, so that's actually conclusion. It's always good to have a very good conclusion in law, especially in case study questions. So criticize. So criticize. What does criticize means? Okay, so criticize literally means analyzing a situation to identify the weaknesses or problem that exist. So, for example, you are given a law question to say that, uh, you know, there are certain weaknesses, in a particular law which has failed to address cases of fraud. Now, criticize that law. Oh, you say, oh, this law is not up to date. So that's one weaknesses that you can identify in that law. Okay, so criticize actually means you are identifying the problem that exists. So just list out those problems, list it out. Don't explain in details. Very important. Define. Very easy. We all know define from secondary school. It actually means giving meaning to a particular question. And in definition, you don't need to go very long. Just keep it short, straight to the point, and relevant. Very simple. Exam type question. Define hire purchase. Just go straight to the point. Define the constitution and mention its types. Mention its types. Don't explain the types. So just list out rigid, flexible, written, unwritten, and all those types of constitutions. So, and that terminology is describe. So, if you are given a particular question in the exam that says describe something, it actually means giving a detailed account of features of something. So, you are going beyond definition. If definition is 2 lines, okay, then describe will actually go like maybe 4 lines because you need to go in detail, to give proper detail of that topic. So, for example, you are given in the question to say received English law is one of the sources of Nigerian law. Describe the concept of English law as it relates to Nigerian law. So you can see that English law is one version of the Nigerian law, right? So they're asking you to describe the concept of English law as it relates to the Nigerian law. So you need to define English law. You need to state its relations, what gave rise to English law being part of the Nigerian law, and probably its importance. So you can say that it is step above definition. So please take note of that, students. Okay, so another examination type is discuss. So when you are asked to discuss something in exam, you are asked to explain something in detail using arguments about the benefits, and the weaknesses or the pros and cons of an issue. Example, ADEX PLC employed A as a company secretary. A hired luxury cars from B enterprise, giving the impression that they were used for ADEX PLC. But he used the car for his own purpose. B enterprise has sued ADEX. Required, discuss the legal issues involved. So what are the legal issues involved in this case? So you need to define what law guides what ADEX and B are actually doing together. So A is just an employee of ADEX and he went into a contract with B. But there was no clear description to say B and A, who is who on what terms are we going into this agreement? So there was no clear description on that. So the legal issue is that they should have discussed from the onset that are you a company, are you an individual, are you actually related to ADEX, based on this contract you are signing. So discuss, you're actually going into detailed. So that's what it actually means. So another term is evaluate. So in the exam, what does evaluate means? Or in law, it entails determining the scenario in light of the argument for and against. And when you are evaluating something, you need to give evidence to support your evaluations. So you don't just evaluate out like that. So you need to back it up with, according to Section 7 of the Nigerian Constitution, companies are required to file annual tax returns. Okay, so according to social section. So there's an exam time question here. Because of time, I don't want to go into much details about it. But evaluation means, giving reference to maybe a particular law or a particular act. And we know we have a lot of laws in business law and act, Companies Income Act, and a lot of other acts. So list. In the exam, you're asked to list several points. Okay, list 5 sources of law in Nigeria. So please don't explain. Just list English law, customary law, Sharia law, and these are the law. List everything out and leave a space. So don't waste your time trying to explain anything. Just list and move on. So the next terminology is explain. I know we're all familiar with explain, but a lot of people confuse explaining and definition together. So there are two different terminologies. If you are explaining, you're actually going in detailed. It's actually similar to describe because they are similar because you are going beyond just defining. You need to, if you are defining a particular term, then you need to explain maybe the types and the importance. So that way you've explained. Okay. So in an exam, the parties to a contract of employment are the employee and the employer. Required, explain three grounds on which an employer may dismiss an employee. Explain three grounds. So before you explain that three grounds, you need to explain what is the relationship between employer and employer. Okay. What once you identify that relationship, then what are those grounds that can affect the relationship between both parties? Okay. So probably maybe one of the parties engages in fraud. I know, the employer is actually going to dismiss the employee, or he has a reputation of fraudulent activities. So it's very, very important to take note of that. So another term is outline. So outlining just entails explaining the highlighted points stated. So you don't really need to go into much detail about the term. And please note that all these terminologies we're actually presenting to you are what the examiner plays around with. So they don't go beyond all this. Once you have a perfect understanding of all this, you're going to be positioning yourself for success in the examination. Okay, and that is our concern here at Starry Gold for our students. So recommend, you're actually giving an advice. And for you to give an advice, you need to understand what the law says about something. You need to really understand it. So it entails giving an advice. And for you to give an advice, you need to understand what was the problem, what law speaks about that problem, and what is your conclusion. So if you are recommending, you need to have what are the facts in the case, what law guides it, and how do you conclude? Because it is on your conclusion that you recommend. It is that conclusion stage that you actually, okay, based on this fact, based on what the law says about this particular matter, the relationship between Ajiboye and James is actually a notorious one. So please don't go ahead to engage in such a contract because you've actually stated the law that guides what both of them are doing together. So recommendation is actually giving advice. And as law students, we give a lot of advice to our clients. So states explain in the exam, it actually means explaining by focusing on the exact point. So you don't need to beat around the bush, just focus on what is expected of you and list them out and just like a brief explanation, just brief. Yeah. So summarize. So when you're asked to summarize something in the exam, it's just giving a brief and condensed conclusion. Exactly. So the examiner is not concerned about 10 pages or 5 lines. So just go straight to the point and make sure you mention the relevant information. And it's usually common in case study questions in the exam. So see the next slide for the next action. So now this is like an exam
Okay.
type question.
Thank
Okay.
you. Just a moment. I think some people have just joined us. So if you are just joining us, we want to acknowledge your presence. So in the chat box, if you are using your computer, you'll see it by the right-hand side. If you are using your phone or your tablet, you see it below the slide. So just put your name there and where you are joining us from so that we can acknowledge your presence. Thank you very much. So those who just joined us, let's acknowledge you. So don't be shy. Come on. Put on your name and where you are joining us from so that we can acknowledge your presence. Thank you very much. Okay, so while we're waiting for them, you can go ahead, Abulai.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for that. So in law, we all know that in business law examination, case study is actually a particular question that students can't run away from. Every diet, you must have at least one case study in the examination. And a lot of students are having issues on how to answer case study. So this is like a bonus. After explaining all the terms that examiner play around with, just to set question for you guys in the exam. So case study too is not exempted. So, and there's a principle that guides how you answer case study. So you don't need to cram anything. So once you understand that principle, you are good to go. Yes. So we give so on the screen you can see the exam type question, and in cracking case study in law examination, there's a principle called IRAC principle. It's an acronym for something. What does that mean? Let's move on. So the I means identification, the R is for rule, A is for analysis, and C is for conclusion. So just have at the back of your mind, case study in the exam. What is that principle that guides how I'm going to answer case study? Just understand IRAC, identification, rules, analysis, and conclusion. So what does that mean? Let's explain those terms. Identification. In the exam, you are given an exam question on a case study. Advise so party using relevant laws. So you need to identify under which law does this case fall. Is it the law of contracts? Then you need to consider the element of law of contract. What are the elements of law of contract? Acceptance, offer, consideration, invitation to threats. So if you read, that is why it's very good. You always read the requirement of the case study or the question first. So once you read the requirements, you have an understanding of what is expected of you. So that way, even though you don't go into detail about the question itself, once you understand the requirements, you are going to be able to answer the question effectively. So I is for what? Identification. What do you do in identification? Based on the case study that has been given to you in the exam, you need to identify under which law does this case fall. A good example, law of contract, or law of partnership law. So once you have identification of the law that guides the case study, then you need to go to the next one, which is R. What is our R? R is for rules. So R means, from the above rule, we can say that the offer is a counter offer because the terms were not accepted by both parties. So it is based on the law that you've identified that you need to apply on the case. You need to, from this law, this case study, are they actually are they in compliance, or are they in agreement? The law says yes. The case study scenario is saying no. So you can see that case study scenario is not in line with the law that you've identified. So the rule there will now be both parties are not complying with the rules of the law. So then you go to your analysis, analysis. In your analysis, you need to what? You need to just identify some facts and principles. The facts and principles, just analyze some facts and principles that are actually expected. So analyze the facts and principles. So the last is the conclusion. If you've identified the law, you know the rule, you've done your analysis to break the law question into bits, taking into consideration the facts, then you now be well positioned to conclude on that law. Because if you don't do identification, you don't know the rule, you've not done analysis, how do you want to conclude? So conclusion is actually the last. So you just conclude on your judgment based on what? These are the legal facts I've identified the issue. They did not comply with the law. Okay? Party A has breached, party B has breached. So I think at the end of the day, the matter needs to be settled in the court of law. So you can see that if you don't know the law that guides that case study question, how do you want to conclude whether the fact in the case is in consonance with the law that you've identified? Okay, so I think that's the end of understanding the question. And remember, we have 3 objectives for today's webinar. Is how can you identify and properly understand the question requirements, which we just concluded now. So the second objective is how you can effectively manage your time. So time is critical in every activity we do. One good example is the webinar we are currently doing. It has its own time. Okay, there's a time allotted to it. So, and we don't have to go beyond that time. So we will not lose the relevance of the training. So effective time management, which is our next objective.
All right, thanks so much. I want to welcome Abiola. Abiola is joining us from Lagos. I just want to acknowledge your presence. Thank you for joining us, Abiola. All right, so over to you, Ablai.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. Effective time management. We all know in the examination hall that ICAN do not allow students to take in their watch to the exam. So how do you manage your time? Are you going to rely on the stop watch on the wall? How many times do you want to keep raising your head, checking the time? Once you know the right technique to adopt, you don't need to even waste your time checking up and down. No, you just focus on what is expected of you. So we give to you some tips to ensure
Yeah,
that you have effective time management.
yeah. Before we go on, I'm actually surprised that ICANN doesn't allow taking of wristwatch to the exam hall. When I was
Yes.
doing my ICANN exams, that restriction wasn't there.
Hmm.
So I'm quite surprised now. Is it that some students are putting Expo inside their wristwatch? Um, well, I don't know. Maybe that is it. Um, so they have stopped allowing students to go in with wristwatch, right? So
Yes, yes, very well.
that's an interesting fact. Okay, you can continue, please.
Okay, yeah, thank you, that. So I think one of the reasons why they actually stop students using wristwatch is because there are some new technological watches now that have been in that is now out available to the world, whereby you can view the content of your phone right from your wristwatch. So this watch are actually smartwatch that you can watch whatever you're doing on your phone via the wristwatch. So if you open a particular PDF, maybe let's say on your phone, then through the watch you can scroll, you can keep scrolling and check. So it's actually very funny actually. So those smart technologies, the way it's really going. So I think
Yeah,
that's one
I
of the
understand. I now know the reason. Yes, the smart technology, smart watches that
yes.
can make calls. Yes, Abiola said smart watches that can make calls. All right. So you can even use it to browse the internet. So how then will a student be able to manage his time when you don't have a wristwatch? So over to you, Abdullahi.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. That's a very it's a very crucial question that all students needs to really understand. So, do you know that your approach to planning your time in the exam is very crucial for completing the exam and ensuring that you maximize the time available? It's two different things. You can have a perfect understanding of the question, the course, but if you don't manage your time very well, you just have too many details in with you, but you'll not be able to, you know, express them in written form using the time available. So let's break it down into bits. The ICAN examination timing for business law or every other topic at the foundation level is actually 3 hours. So 3 hours, you have a 3 hour paper. Remember that the 3 hours, that is when the examiners will actually what? They will share the script, they are going to share answer sheet, and they will give you some few time for you to go through your question. So the questions which will be presented are actually in two folds, section A and section B. So section A has 20 compulsory multiple choice questions, which are 1 mark each. So how do you answer section A effectively? So we broke it down to say, okay, you have 20 multiple choice questions, which is 1 mark each. So you don't have to spend much time on that section. At maximum 3 minutes per question. That is the maximum you should do. 3 minutes per question. 3 minutes per question for you to manage that time effectively. 3 minutes per question. So
Okay.
if you do,
Let me add to that for the benefit of our listener. So there are the exam is 3 hours, So 3 hours means we have 180 minutes. So 180 minutes, if we divide that by 100 marks, it means that for every 10 mark, you should not spend more than 18 minutes.
hmm,
Any question that you see there, you just multiply it by 1.8 minutes. So that is the mark allocated. So you shouldn't spend more than that minute for that question. So if the section 1 is 40 marks, right? So it therefore means that you should not spend more than how many minutes in all? 18 minutes times 4, which is 72 minutes, which is 1 hour and 12 minutes.
And 12 minutes, yes.
You should not spend more than 1 hour, 12 minutes, which is 72 minutes. And since that section 1 has 20 marks, right?
Marks, yes.
Am I right? So
yes,
it means therefore that it means therefore that, is it 20 marks or 40 marks? It's 40 marks.
No, okay, 20 MCQ, and we have also some short answer questions. Yes.
Oh, okay. So for the 20 MCQ, how many marks is awarded for that?
For the 20 MCQ, is 1 mark each.
Oh, 1 mark each. So
yes,
it therefore means that the 20 MCQ is 20 marks. Am I right?
Yes, very correct, sir.
So it therefore means that you should not spend more than 36 minutes in all in that MCQ, which means if we divide 36 minutes by 20 marks, you should not spend more than 1 minute, 1.8 minutes, which means 1 minute 48 seconds on one question. So 3 minutes might even be too much. So anything you are doing, once you are reading the question and is giving you difficulty, just leave it and go to the next one. You don't have to answer it. Just leave that question and go to the next one. As you are reading it, if it sounds like what you know, then you can go ahead and pick that. And then that's when you are doing the objective. So any question you don't know, don't guess the answer yet. Leave it. And the reason why you shouldn't guess the answer is that when you start solving the theory part or the short answer part, some of the AC have answers to some of the objective. So you will find out that when you are reading the AC, suddenly you will realize that this was tested in this objective. Exactly. And you will just see the answer in the description. So you can go back to the objective and then you immediately fill in your answer and then you move on. So don't guess the answer until you are about submitting the question, your answer script. So when you are about submitting your answer script and you have written down everything you know, you now go back to your objective. Any blank space there, then you can guess the answer. Don't ever leave it blank, because when you leave it blank, you have 0 chance of passing that one paper, that one question. But if you guess an answer, you have 25% chance of getting it right. Okay, I hope that is helpful. Please leave in the chat box if you are getting what we are saying, and if you also have a question, please leave it there, because these are just exam technique that we're looking at. Okay, go ahead, Ablai.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that insight, sir. Okay, so remember we said earlier that we have 2 sections in the exam, which is the section A and section B. So for the section B, you will be given 6 questions in total, out of which you are expected to answer 4. You're expected to answer just 4 questions out of these 6 questions in the exam. So in answering that 4, you need to be very careful on how you go about it. So it doesn't matter whatever number you pick, even though you start from 2, you pick question 2, question 6, question 4, question 3. Just make sure the questions you select are 4. Do not exceed 4, and do not answer more than 4. Do not exceed 4. Yes, very important. So, and when answering questions, ensure that they are answered on new pages. So if you are picking question number 1, okay, out of the 4 which you'll be answering, ensure that question number 1 has its own page.
Okay. Yeah, are you there? I guess maybe it's your network. So if you can hear me, please put in the chat box that you can hear me. Oh, okay. What happened? I think the lecturer just left. Is it in error? All right, let's just wait for him. Please put in the chat box if you can hear me and you can see me. Can you just put it in the chat box? If you can hear me and you can see me, please put it in the chat box that you can hear me. You can also see me. Oh, thank you, Seun. All right. We don't know what happened to the lecturer. Just a moment, please. Oh, he's back, I guess. Okay. Abdullah, are you back?
Yes, I am. It's the
All
next.
right. So you can share your screen again. Temitope, thank you. You can hear. You can hear me. Okay. So you can go on with your presentation.
Okay, working on that.
So just bear with us. You know, technology is not yet very perfect as we want it to be. So hiccups comes up once in a while, which is life, which is how life works. Yeah, you're back. Well done. All
Okay.
right. Thank you very much, Ajayi. Ajayi, so I can hear you. Okay. So you can please continue.
Okay. So the network actually went off. So as I mentioned earlier, in section B, you are just expected to answer 4 questions out of the 6 total that has been given to you in the exam. So, and in answering these 4 questions, ensure you answer them on, a new page. Question number 1, a page, a new page. Question number 2, a fresh new page entirely. Question number 3, fresh new page. And question number 4, like that. So ensure that there's proper spacing across each of these questions. So don't lump them up together, even though they are not much. And uh, for each of those questions, again.
So, so just to interrupt, I'll be showing you a sample before we go, how exactly you should number your pages. What happened is that some people make the mistake of numbering their pages wrongly, such that, for instance, you didn't leave enough space. So I'm going to explain that before we go. So just please continue.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, so in the timing aspect, so in answering question section B, which is the 4 question, so we know that this is a 3-hour paper, right? And we've mentioned earlier that you don't spend more than at most 2 minutes per question, as highlighted in the section A. So now for section B, you're expected to ensure that each of those questions at most don't spend more than 30 minutes per question, for it to effectively maximize that time effectively. Because if you are spending more than, it can be less than 30 minutes, yeah, depending on how fast and uh how sure you are in the exam, how familiar we are with the questions. So, but if you are spending more than 30 minutes, then you risk, losing time. Okay, so you risk losing time if you are spending more than 30 minutes. So that's like the cap we gave for it to say if you are going above 30 minutes, then there's a problem. So you need to maintain that line. It can be below or at most 30 minutes per question. So it's very important we try to take note of that. Yeah. So, and your approach to timing, planning your time is actually crucial for completing the exam and ensuring that you make the best use of the time. So to make things fast for you, okay, and while we are being fast, we need to ensure quality as well. So first thing first, always read the requirements first. So if you are reading the requirements of the question first, it saves you time of, let's say, for example, a particular question has over 4 5 lines. So going through the requirements alone might just give you a perfect understanding to say this is what is expected of me in this exam. So you won't waste much time, trying to read the question from the beginning to the end. Then you now start to do some analysis to say, oh, okay, this is what they said. You now be underlining. No. So once you read the requirements upfront, then you've saved enough time. That way itself, you might not even read into detail what the question says. Another approach you can use to manage your time very well is scanning. Okay. So, and this is very important because whenever the invigilator is actually distributing the answer sheet and the question, it's very important that at that point, please follow the instruction. Don't write. Okay. So just scan through. You are allowed to scan through. You can check, oh, okay, okay. And at that point, you can decide which number am I going to answer. So once you decide upfront to say, I'm going to answer question 2, 4, 5, 6. So you just tick them. Once you do that, then if you know the answers are coming to your head, you can jot them. Once the examiner says start, you can now jot them at the back of uh your answer sheet. But to save time, actually, it's actually not a very good approach to start jotting here and there, because the time you're using to jot, it's you can use that time to answer that particular question. So if
Let
it's
me
question
add
number three,
something to that. Let me add something to
okay,
that. When you are giving your questions, right? I remember it has objective. You don't want to start with the objective. You want to go to the uh, the the
requirement.
the theory part where
Okay.
they give you options and says answer three. I'm still trying to pull out the question so that I can. Okay, just a moment.
We should instead maybe teach the men that are not as successful with women.
All right. Sorry, I'm just trying to pull out um, this for me. Um, yes. So you once you because when you are if can you hear me? Um, can everybody hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you
Oh, good,
clearly.
good, good. So the reason is that when you read the question, right, the answer will start flowing out of your mind, and many
Hmm.
times, and when they flow out like that, you may not be able to recall them again when you really need them. So the advice I give our students, which I use when I was preparing for my exam, is that you see this is like your answer sheet, right? When they give it to you, the screen. Can you see my? Can you see me? What I'm holding?
Yes.
Yeah, like, can you see me?
Yeah, very
You
clear,
can
sir.
see the sheet of paper I hold, right?
Yes, yes.
Beautiful. So this is how your answer sheet looks like. So it wants to they say start, go to the very last page, and then as you read the options, maybe they gave you six papers and they say choose three. So and you are reading through the six to determine which one you will choose out of those, which three you will choose. The sometimes you will have more knowledge in one question than the other, isn't it? Abdullah?
Exactly.
All right. So if that's your case, because uh, so you want to start jotting down the points, just the bullet point as they are flowing in your head. For instance, question four, you have question 4A, you just put down the point. Question 4B, you just put down the point, and so on. Then you go to question five, question six, all of them as they come. The way you now decide the one you have enough points for, then you now pick it and you now start developing it. Because most time, once you read a question, what question do is that it pull out the answers from your mind. And if you don't capture it while you are writing, if you don't capture it immediately, it will go off. It's just like when you are, if you are very deep in thought, if you don't write some things down when you are meditating, you understand, you will just forget those things. I don't know if it has happened to you, Abdullah. Okay, are you there? Oh, yeah, Abdullah, are you there?
Yes, yeah, I am.
Yeah, I don't know if what I said earlier on. Um, okay, please project your screen. I think your screen is on, Abdullah. So, all right. So, um, okay. So, like I showed you this sheet of paper, I'm going to do some analysis in that as well. So, yes, Abdullah, you can please stop sharing so that I can
Okay.
now share my own screen. Just show people what I'm talking about. Share screen. Okay. Um, oh, the window slides. Yes, I'm coming. I'm just trying to pick my screen. Which one should I share? Um, entire screen. Okay, just a moment. Okay. All right. Can you see my screen? Yeah, Abdullah, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, good. So let me go to business law so that I can just quickly explain what I'm talking about here for our audience. Um, okay, all right, it's coming up. So the point I'm bringing out is that once you um, get your question, if you don't want to start with the objective, then you leave the space and quickly go and read. Just scan through. And how should you scan through? You should scan through just the question and the requirements of the question. Please don't go through the case study, right? Yeah, if you can see business law on my screen, apply, please indicate.
Yes, yes,
You can see business law. All right, so
yes,
this is a typical exam question. You'll be given 15 minutes to read the of reading time. Within that 15 minutes, you are not expected to write anything down. So now this is the session one. Write only the alphabet A, B, C, or E that correspond to the correct option in each of the following question or statement. So these are the question here for the objective. So you can see I'm screening, just scrolling through because of time. I'm just scrolling through. So this is session one. So if you want to answer this in the exam, like I said earlier on, anyone you don't have a clue about, then you just leave it and jump to the next one. But make sure that you leave the space. In other words, you write 1 to 20. You write 1 to 20 in your answer sheet, right? So if you are answering this session 1 to 20 in your answer sheet. So anyone that you know, you go to that place and you put it there. But be very careful so that if you are reading question 17 here, which of the following is a type of negotiable instrument? Type of negotiable instrument, which of them here? Is it bill of lading? Is it treasury bill? Is it postal stamp? Is it credit note? Is it debit advice? So whatever the answer you picked here, be sure that you don't go and put your answer in number 18. Number 17 goes into number 17. All right. So once you finish here, let's say you don't even know which of the following is a right of beneficiary of a trust. That's question 19. Let's say you don't even know the answer. Don't choose any answer for now.
exactly.
Just leave it and go to the next one. So it is when you're about submitting your question, your answer in the exam, or when the examiner say 5 minutes to go, then you come back and you can now come and put in the answers, because sometimes as you are going through the case study, the answer will just flash back into your mind. Now I go to section B. You are required to answer any 4 out of the 6 question in this session, and they say it's 80 marks. 80 marks. So any 4. So question 1 received, yeah, question 1, just go ahead and talk about it here. So you see, explain briefly the following terms. So status of general application, English law extending to Nigeria. So this place is saying that you are required to answer any 4. Question 1 has A, B, C. I don't know if you are with me.
Yes,
Question 2 has A, B, C, D. Question 3 has A, B, C. Question 4 have A, B, C. Question 5 have A, B. questions ABC rather. Question 6 have ABC and so on. Now, let's go back. You are expected to answer only 4. So you are giving this in your exam. So what should you do? How should you approach it to save time? You quickly come to the requirement. This question 1 says, explain briefly the following terms, status of general application, English law extension to Nigeria. So here is talking about law in general, introduction to law and all of that. So if you know, remember that this is just 2 marks each, which means you should not spend more than 1.8 minutes for, that means 1.8 minutes will give us how many hours? 1.8 minutes times 0.8 times 60, which means 1 minute. We're talking of 48 plus 60 minutes, which means 108 seconds. 108 seconds is what you should spend on this question. So unfortunately, you are not going to have a clock to guide you. So if there is a wall clock around you, make sure you watch that time and you just write how many minutes you must spend on each of these. Then the second one here say, explain briefly 3 relationships that are similar to partnership. So if you are going to answer partnership, you tick that. You go to the next one and so on. Now, I haven't explained that. Once you have ticked all the questions that you want to answer, then you now come back to your answer sheet. I did something here. So I'm going to stop sharing so that I can come back to explain what I have here. So Abdullah, you are my guide here. You need to tell me if you are seeing me now.
Yes.
You can see me, good. All right, now I put something here. You can see 4A. So
Yes.
assuming it's number 4 I want to answer, I'll come here, I put 4A. Then I open the next page. I put 4A, continue.
Continue. Yes.
Right? So assuming that it's not 4A I want to really answer, I want to go and answer 4C. Then I will open the next page again. I'll put 4B. You can see 4B there.
Yes.
Can you see?
Yes.
4B?
4B.
Then the next page I put 4B, continue. Can you see that? Remember, I'm going to 4C. Then this is 4C, right?
Yes.
Then I can now start writing 4C. Remember, I didn't answer 4A and 4B. If it is 4C that I really know, I don't even know what 4A is. So for instance, this business law that say you should answer 4 out of 6. Assuming that out of those 4 that you have picked, you don't even know what 4A and 4B means. It's 4C that you know. So you will label it 4A, 4B, 4A continue, 4B, 4B continue, and 4C. You will now continue your 4C here. What does that do for you? It helps the examiner to know that there's still a continuation once they are opening. They know that number 1, you have not answered 4A, so they can open the sheet to 4B, and then they can now see 4C and then mark it. Now, let's assume that you even know what to do in 4A and 4B, but there is what we call easy mark. Easy mark are those 2-mark question, 1-mark question, 3-mark question, and you want to quickly pick up those easy mark. So you go to that 4C
Exactly.
and you quickly pick that up. Why did I put 4? So you now come back to 4A and you now start your 4A, right? 4A. When you come back to 4A continue, maybe this place is already filled up, right? Remember, you have already written maybe 4B. I mean, you have already started 4B, right? So most times, students will now cancel that 4B that they have written and now go and be rewriting it in other pages, which wastes time. So, but remember, I put 4A continue here, so I can ask for extra sheets. By asking for extra sheets, I can insert that if I want to continue 4A. I can now start that in an extra sheet. So because I have an extra sheet with me, which I've asked for from the examiner, I can now put it there again, 4A, continue again. You can see that. Remember that this is 4A continue. This is another 4A continue. If I've asked for extra sheet, I can now tie that extra sheet together with this before I now go to 4B. I guess my explanation doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
it does. Very perfect, sir.
Does it make sense?
Perfect.
So if you do it that way, particularly when you are doing calculation courses and all the rest, you will find out that because you have put a continuation here, you can always ask for extra paper that you will slide in between. So once you label all your paper properly, then once the exam is through, you go through them properly before you tie them together with the rope they will give to you. You go through them to be sure that you inserted the additional paper correctly. All right. So that's what I want to share with us. So Abdullah, you can go on. So that we can wrap up. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can continue sharing your screen and then you can quickly wrap up.
Thank you very much for that insight. Yeah, we are never tired of your wisdom, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move forward. The time management. So time wasters, just like you know, it has been mentioned that we shouldn't waste time on questions that you are not sure of. So easy marks. So those questions you are very sure of, you can try to work on them, as you progress in the exam. So spacing, just like the explanation, Mr. Tai has actually given us. So the spacing is very important, and we don't need to lump up things together. It's better to even have enough space than trying to lump them up together. So that way,
Exactly.
it actually saves examiners. Some examiners, uh, they can't mark with things that are lumped up together.
Yeah,
So
let
and they
me
don't,
let you know that the examiner are paid per the paper they mark.
hmm,
So they want to mark as many as
as
possible
many as
within
possible.
the
Yes,
short time possible. So if you make it easier for the examiner by spacing it properly, don't you see
yes.
you have paid for the exam, you have paid for the papers. When you are asking for more papers, other people will be wondering, don't be ashamed at all. You've paid for it. Just ask, collect them, and make sure that you label them properly. All right, let's go to the next page so that we can wrap up. We're already beyond space. Okay, so this is, like we said, I haven't explained all of that. How do you prepare for this exam? Now, if you don't have our video lecture, we actually recommend that you use video to prepare for exam. Why? Because researchers said if you spend, and you yourself, you may have looked at that, if we transcribe what we have done in this 1 hour plus, 1 hour, 15 minutes or thereabout, it will be
Yes,
entering up to maybe 20 to 30 pages if
yes,
we
yes.
transcribe them. Now, that means if you are reading, you will not be able to catch up
You'll not be able
reading
to catch
20
up.
to
Yes,
30 pages if you are reading. But because you
exactly.
are listening to us, so if you are on the road, you are listening, you can catch up very quickly by listening and by watching. That's why video lectures are the best way of studying. Yes, if you are in the classroom one on one, that will also be perfect. You can augment that with video lecture. So if you want to get our video lecture, the numbers on the screen, you can call, you can WhatsApp, you can chat, and then we will give you the prices and all of that. And yeah, we have whatever your conditions are. Even if you have already paid for lecture, get in touch with us because what we want to do is that we want you to pass this exam. So sometimes you miss classes, you are not able to go for classes. And when you miss those classes, if you're attending physical class, the lecturer is not going to repeat that class for you. So this is where video lecture comes in. So just chat with us. Our video lecture are very comprehensive, very, very comprehensive. And beside that, we have more than 16 diets, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, 16 diets of past question and answers that we have solved, right? We have solved them. So if you that is apart from the video lecture itself. The video lecture we have covered the entire syllabus, the entire syllabus. So you get 16 diet past question fully solved as well. There's no way you can fail the exam if you stick to what we are giving you. Next slide, please. So, oh no, not this. Yeah, next slide. Okay, next slide. Yes. So not only that, the moment you get the video, you can also join our Telegram classes. So our Telegram classes is where our lecturers are available to give you free lectures every week. So the number on the screen is the same number you need to contact. So it's free for everybody. So make sure that you share the link of this webinar to your friends. Let them come and watch it. The replay is available. So once you share the link with them, they will come back and rewatch it, and they will see everything that we have done today. All right. So the slide will also be sent to those of you that are here. So anybody you send this list to, this webinar link to, will also send you the slide. All right. So the Telegram class come up every week. A lecturer come there, answer your questions, and so on and so forth. All right. Next slide, please. All right. Next slide again. I've explained this already. So we want to thank you very much for coming. Don't expect result without hard work. So the only place where success comes before work is in the dictionary, according to Victor Sasson. So if you get the video lecture, you still need to go through it. So if you don't have time, like the exam is already approaching, as we know, you don't even have time to go for lectures. You don't even have time to study on your own and get the video lecture. Between your place of work and the your office, you can be going through non-calculation courses.
Exactly.
So you can put them on your Android phone and be going through them in the bus. And if your driver is taking you to the office, yeah, you can just go through them in the car. And if you are joining your colleague to go to the office, then you can just put in your earpiece the way I'm doing, so that you don't, nobody disturbs you, and then you just start listening to it. Because as you go through it over and over, you find out that it will start registering your subconscious mind. Like I've always said, if you have been listening to one music or the other, as you go through a music over and over and over again, after some time, the music will start playing back in your subconscious mind. I don't know if I've witnessed that before. Even if it is an immoral
Yes.
music you don't like, then it will start playing back again in
To
your
start
mind.
playing. Yes.
Yes. So that's why we are encouraging our students to go through the video lecture at least 2 times before the exams. Please share the screen again for where they can get the number that they can call or WhatsApp or chat. Yes. So we encourage you, once you get the video lecture, you go through it at least 2 times. There's some additional resources we give to you. We give you the 30 days blueprint. The 30 days blueprint helps you to cover the entire syllabus within 30 days. So, and we will also WhatsApp you and also share in our Telegram class what you should go through for each day of that 30 days. And amazingly, even if you miss some days, you pick yourself up and you follow up. So, and we'll run that at least 2 or 3 times before the exam. There's no way you can fail this exam if you follow our method. All right, we're bringing this to a close. So if you are still with us, give us a shout out there. Tell us how you feel about the webinar. Give us your reaction. So as we bring it to a close, if you have any question, post it there, and then within the next 2 minutes, we shall come to a close. All right, Abdullah, I don't know if you still have any advice for our students. You can go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. Just like you rightly said that the ICAN video lectures is actually comprehensive and it saves a lot of time. So hardly people find it hard to digest, 50 pages or 100 pages of material. But with video, you are learning on the go, you are listening at the same time you are watching. And the beautiful thing is that you can play as much as you can. And this will actually help, uh, with the memory. So you can be able to remember, oh, I watched this video a particular time. So you can easily remember rather than, the written text. So we will advise all our students, to actually take advantage of this opportunity because what we deliver is quality and your success is actually our main priority. So, so with that in mind, so everything we are doing is just to make sure that you pass the exam and you get qualified, as soon as possible. And we also guide you throughout the way as well. So I'd just like to thank everybody for coming on board. Please let's try and share this link with our respective friends. That's the best thing we can actually do. So even though you are attending physical classes, even though you are attending sessions, like there are still some points here which most tuition houses won't actually explain in detail, just like we did here in today's webinar. So having that alone, it will actually position you to, okay, these are what the examiner asks for. These are what I'm supposed to do. So yeah. So please, we advise that we actually get the video lecture so that you you can be updated more. This is just a tip of the iceberg. What you'll be seeing at the other end is actually, uh, what will position you for success. And we'd like to thank everybody for coming and everyone. Yes.
Thank
So if you
you,
have any questions,
everyone. Thank you very much, everyone. Abiola, yes, for the issue you have raised, you can please contact our support. Just WhatsApp the number on your screen, and then they will guide you. Today being Saturday, yeah. So if nobody gets to you now, obviously we'll get back to you once we resume the next working days. So then we'll be able to resolve everything for you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Ablai, and bye,
okay.
everyone.